Welcome back to Jersey Matters. We have some good news. The homelessness problem in New Jersey seems to be diminishing a little bit. The problem is, in some counties, it has increased. Taiisa Kelly is the Chief Executive Officer at Monarch Housing and New Jersey Counts. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. What is New Jersey Counts?
So NJ Counts is an annual count of persons experiencing homelessness in the state of New Jersey. We do a count every year, the last Wednesday in January, across the state. The count is coordinated on a single day, and we look at who is experiencing homelessness and staying in emergency shelters, transitional housing programs, as well as who's experiencing homelessness and staying on the street, living in cars or in encampments, kind of hidden out of sight and that are unsheltered.
Yeah, when you talked about encampments, you're talking about people living in the woods or
Correct.
in the forest, and is that, do many people do that?
Yes, there are encampments throughout the state. They're a little bit harder to identify, to find, so each community has outreach teams that are tasked with going out to identify where people are staying if they're not in an emergency shelter situation and they're unsheltered. So every county in the state pretty much has encampments in some wooded areas. There are people that are trying to kind of just stay out of sight and, survive as best they can.
So the number for the entire state has gone down?
It has gone down. So we do the count every year, and from 2018 to 2019, the count went down about 5%.
But in some counties, it's going up?
Correct.
One county jump out? Is there a particular county that's shown a problem?
So I think the largest increase that we saw was in Somerset County. I think, what we've seen across the state is that there are a variety of things that are happening. New Jersey is a high-cost state to live in. You'd have to earn about $28 an hour to afford a two-bedroom in the state of New Jersey. And when we looked at the point-in-time count and the data that we collect through NJ Counts, the average income for people who are experiencing homelessness ranged from $300 to about $900. So people are not making enough money to really survive in the state. Or there's a segment of the population that's not really making enough to afford housing.
When you say $300 to $900, you're talking about a year or a week?
Oh, a month, sorry. Monthly income.
$300 to $900 a month. So the economy, the fact that we have had a pretty good economy over the last several years doesn't seem to reach the homelessness.
Correct. So people are working. About 12% of the population that completed the survey indicated that they had employment income, that they were working. The challenge is that they're not making enough money to really afford housing and afford an apartment in New Jersey. So that's one of the big factors that has impacted who's becoming homeless. And there are certain communities throughout the state where we're seeing the cost of housing rising, which we are sure is impacting who's actually experiencing homelessness.
Is that the number one factor, the cost of housing?
I think that there's a couple of things that are working together, but definitely the cost of housing, the loss of income or loss of hours or loss of income from job income, the increasing cost of housing. The other piece that we see as a big factor is being asked to leave a shared residence. So there are lots of people that are living doubled up with friends and family, and that can be a tenuous situation that's hard to maintain long term, and eventually people have to leave that situation and become homeless.
Why is this count important? I mean, it's one thing to know what the numbers are, but if you don't do anything with it, right, it seems superfluous.
Right, so with the point-in-time count, we use this data. We actually do use this data throughout the year. Every community has a local planning body that is charged with addressing homelessness, figuring out what the programs they need in the community. And so the numbers that we collect from the point-in-time count and the information that we collect helps to inform that planning process at the local level to ensure that the programs that are actually implemented in the community are based on what the needs are for those who are experiencing homelessness.
Is there funding available by the numbers?
It's not a direct correlation, but yes, the numbers do impact funding. And this year, the count's especially important because it helps us prepare for the 2020 census. Now, the census actually does directly impact how much money is allocated to the state and to individual communities for social service programs, for infrastructure projects, for education. So understanding who's experiencing homelessness, understanding who the population that is earning lower wages, and understanding that full scope in New Jersey is really important so that we can get our fair share of funding from the federal level to support the services and programs that we have at the local levels.
In the demographics you break down, is there something that surprised you?
I think that the challenge is that we are seeing kind of steady numbers from year to year to year. Over the last couple of years, we've started to look a little bit more closely at the racial breakdown of those who are experiencing homelessness. And it's something that we've known, but it's very stark and surprising when you see the numbers on paper. So for example, people who identify as Black or African American represent about 13% of the population in the state of New Jersey. But when we look at the numbers of people who are experiencing homelessness, they represent about 50% of the population that we identify as experiencing homelessness. So there's a huge disparity in terms of who's experiencing homelessness. And so it's really important for us to really understand why that's happening so that we can ensure the programs that we're implementing really speak to that issue and can effectively help people get back into permanent housing and maintain that housing.
You said it's important to understand why it's happening. Why is it happening?
A lot of different reasons. I think that there's two primary things that we look at, or three primary things that we look at when we're doing this work around the communities. One, there's not enough supply of affordable housing in the state. So we really need to make sure that we're investing in creating affordable housing throughout New Jersey and every community.
But that wouldn't necessarily affect African Americans more.
The second piece that I think impacts that is access. So even with the housing that is created, not everybody is able to access those opportunities. And that is related to, structural racism that we see happening or just kind of integrated into the systems about eligibility. It is connected to the opportunities from education, access to employment opportunities. Those types of factors impact who becomes homeless. Not all of those things are kind of controlled by or managed through the homeless service system. But when we start to look at and tease out some of those pieces and start to connect more with those other sectors in society, then we can start to have an impact.
Is New Jersey Counts, NJ Counts, I'm sorry. I keep saying New Jersey, but is NJ Counts a nonprofit?
So NJ Counts is kind of the term that we use for the process. So there's not a separate organization. It's just one of the activities that we do at Monarch Housing. So we coordinate the count for the whole state.
And Monarch Housing is a private company?
So Monarch Housing is a nonprofit agency. This is our 30th year, actually. We're celebrating 30 years, and we're focused on ensuring that every person in the state has access to housing that is that meets their needs and that is affordable, high-quality housing throughout the state.
Where can people find you?
So we are accessible on the internet. Our website is monarchhousing.org. And our offices are located in Cranford, but we are really doing the work throughout the state, so we're always in the community, kind of meeting people wherever they are to help address issues of homelessness and housing development, affordable housing development, and supportive housing development in the state of New Jersey.
Wonderful. Nice to meet you. Thank you for coming in. I
having
really
me.
appreciate it. Taiisa Kelly, Chief Executive Officer at Monarch Housing and NJ Counts. When we come back, a police officer that died in the Jersey City shootout has his mortgage paid by a company that helps first responders across the country. We'll explain when Jersey Matters continues.